I'm particularly happy to be doing this presentation because the first book I ever created when we started Memento was a book for my father. So when we first started Memento, I already had family history books at the forefront of my mind. And it was interesting timing because my dad, who is the family memory keeper, he knows all the stories, he knows all the people. You couldn't walk down the main street of the town where he grew up without everybody stopping and talking to him along the way. And any opportunity he had to regale us with stories of, when he was young and at school and in early life, he would do that. He actually was diagnosed with cancer. So we decided that we were going to work on his memoirs. That was 16 years ago now, but it was a really interesting process. And I thought you might find it interesting to know how I went about it, because I'm sure everybody has a story about how they came to be working on their project. One moment, I can hear somebody. Jeff, if you can hear anybody. Yeah, thanks. All right, so with Dad and with you guys, everyone starts with a huge amount of photos, I imagine. For my father, I decided I'd make life easy, and I scanned them all and put them and printed them out with Memento, but I actually went and got them bound into a spiral notebook at Officeworks. And then I gave Dad these two different volumes of the books that were separated into early life, and then the second book was later in life. And I'd placed the content on the pages so that they were very sparse, and he could write, excuse me, he could write notes in the blanks. So I'm just going to show you what some of those looked like. Now, sharing screen, let's go to share screen. Here we are now. So what are you guys seeing now there? Finder, excellent, because these are all the photos that I had for my dad's books, quite a few, as you can see. But what I wanted to show you were some of these books, so the pages of the books that I prepared. And it was a really interesting process because Dad started handwriting the details in there. But then and at other times, my sister or myself or my aunt would be with him, and he'd tell us a story and we'd write in there for him. Then these were the covers of the two books, the different versions that I mentioned. Then I also had all of the memorabilia that he had collected along the way, and I've got it all now in a little leather case that I pulled out the other day, and found all these bits and pieces. But while we're here, I think it's really interesting to look at the diversity of the content that you're working with. It's not just photographs. Having said that, we're talking about family history books now because we create the photo books. And I think it's interesting with
Well, Libby, we can't hear you. I'm sorry.
Jeff kindly muted me, but I am now unmuted. So we have a lot of Memento customers online with us today. Thanks for joining us. But we also have some new people on board through the Australian Federation of Family History Organisations, as well as the Queensland Family History Society. And I imagine that we have slightly different approaches to the way that we're working with our family history books. Most of our customers come from the kind of the photographic side of things, and their purpose is to get the photos in print, and maybe the stories and the other memorabilia and things that you can see here are secondary or additional content, whereas I imagine the genealogy researchers and the family history enthusiasts, the research that you have put endless hours into, the documentation, the stories, and all of the factual information that you've collected, that plays a really important part, and that would drive the design of your book. Anyway, if we're talking about the graphics driving the design, or the graphical element of the family history book design, you've got some examples here of obviously photographic prints. I've got old magazines, the passport, certificates being educational certificates, and his birth certificate. We also did, my father was a musician, and we had recorded some of his tracks. So it had some audio recording in the audio interview elements in it as well. So we had to transcribe those. And we also had an old family history book of his. So there was quite a bit of content to work with. And I tried to include as much of that as I could in the books. But let's just have a look at, so this here is like a timeline of the process of working on my dad's book. Over on the left there was a handwritten document from my aunt on a batch of family history photographs. Both she and my father were very keen on the family history, and they collated a lot of them and put together this document. As I said, I then created the notebooks, the spiral notebooks, so he could write in them. What happened halfway through that process was that Dad's handwriting failed, so he couldn't write anymore. So we had to mix things up, and I got an audio recorder and we recorded the stories. And what was so fascinating and beautiful about that was that he was getting ill by this stage, but if he saw a photo or he reminisced about a particular story, it was almost like he was animated back to life, to his old ways, because he got so involved with the story that, yeah, it gave him a new lease on life. And I think that's a beautiful thing about family histories and working, you know, with different generations working on a family history project. So we had to transcribe those recordings, and that's what you're seeing here in I did some spreadsheets of just the different sections, and then I've got the full transcription. The book with the beautiful little baby's eye on it, eyelid, is the book that I ended up doing. My dad passed away the day after his first grandchild was born, and this is my nephew Sam. But the reason I've included it here is because I had to adapt to the situation. There was still a lot more work to do on Dad's book, but I wanted my sister and Sam to have a book that represented my father. So, and this is interesting because there's so many different forms of family histories and stories of others. But the Pearls of Wisdom, I called it, just included the sayings and the quotations and the kind of the rules for life that he would talk to us about. And then I combined them with photos of Sam. And that's still probably, it would have to be the most precious book that I have. And the last book with the black cover is there because I have not yet finished Dad's final edition, but I will be completing that this year, which is my plan for you guys. Basically tonight, I would like to be able to give you all the information and the tools that you need to be able to go out there and turn your collections of photos, research documentation, stories, facts, for you to be able to transform those into a beautiful and stylish photo book design. Yeah, that can be handed down for generations. So keep the story going. So let me jump back now to the presentation. Moment. All right, are you seeing that one now? Okay, let's go back to I will let me share. Here we go. Here we go. All right. So there we have that question. What is a family history photo book? Well, as I said, my definition is it can be lots of different things, but at its core, it's a printed publication that includes photos, possibly photos, and photos only, and possibly text only, or photos, text, other supportive graphics that enhance and tell the story in a more fuller form, factual documents, the certificates, and other memorabilia. So telling the story for generations. I should also point out, everyone, that you are free at any point to pop questions into the chat window for the Q&A session at the end. I imagine we're going to have a lot of questions. I did have some submitted earlier, and a lot of those were to do with text. So, but feel free to pop them into the chat window, and if it's relevant, Gina and Jeff can let me know what the questions are. And if it isn't covered during my presentation, your question, just let me know at the end. So, different kinds of family photo books. I'm thinking of a book that's produced specifically for a family reunion that will have a different format and purpose and design to, say, a personal memoir like my father's. It will probably have a different format as well. There's also family histories that come in the form of a birthday gift or an anniversary gift. So it might be about an individual or a couple. It might be a memorial for somebody. But I also want us to consider that family history books are also living books, like the annual or the yearbook that you might do for your family right now. Yeah, we're creating history every day. So don't forget the current history that's being created. Okay, now, there we go. The different types of books, and each of these books will have different elements and considerations that go into them for their creation. Okay, so now I'd like to show you a few examples. I've already mentioned Poppy's Pearls of Wisdom. We might have a quick flick through on screen first, but basically what I'm going to show you here are the examples of what I think are excellent design. We see so many beautiful history books come through. I mean, it really is quite a high proportion of our prints that we produce. And you can see the amount of effort that has gone into them. One thing, though, that is obvious to me is that most of them are very intense designs. Because there is so much content to work with, people include a lot of photos on a page, a lot of text, no surprises there. But the volume of content on the page is one thing that I think is important. The less is more, as they say, and also giving that content space to breathe. They would be the 2 points that I'd really like to make clear to you, because I see it so often. Keep your design spacious, with space between the photos and the text, the photos and the edge of the page, between text and photos or text columns. Just space everywhere makes such a difference. And you'll see that the difference in the photo books that I'm about to show you. So let me go and share the PDFs there. All right, what are you seeing now? Okay, so we are going to go to the files. Jeffrey, how do I get them back on full screen? Because we're not in full screen mode.
Save them back.
I am trying to get to the PDFs. Yeah, actually, let's do this.
Acrobat's already.
I know. So there we go. I'm trying to get to Acrobat there.
Yeah, so you're only sharing the screen now. Just go back to your screen sharing.
Oh, right. Sorry. I'm still perfecting this one.
I knew I was here for a reason.
Yes, so Jeff is the tech guru. So here I am with the screen sharing, new share.
Maybe just drop out and swap.
Hold on, or I'm going to do this. How about this? Where did you file them?
Downloads.
Downloads.
They're all open, so just select all of them.
Okay. Yay. I will move them up. Right. So, no. Oh dear.
Clear sharing. Restart.
Yeah, okay, I'm going to stop the sharing and do it again so we get this right. Where?
Red button.
I am right here. Where? Ah, I see. I said it right. Yay, we have it. Okay, apologies, but this will be worth it. All right, so what I have here are the pages. I haven't included the cover here because we have the covers as a separate file. But this book is by a woman called Tanya Barker, who's produced 3 beautiful family history books with us. This was the first, and she actually, I became aware of Tanya's work because she won the Book of the Month competition twice, and I realised later that it was the same woman. So I actually got in contact with her, and she told me that she and her mum had spent a long time putting these together. But what I loved about Tanya's work is that it was a sleek design. There is a generous amount of content on the page, but it's very tastefully laid out. So she's worked very well with very well with a lot of content. And I'll point out a few of the formatting features that I think are worth noting for your designs as well. First of all, it's interesting that on this first page here, she has obviously immediately told us who this book is about. It's an iconic shot. We have the name, the date. Actually, we don't have a date there, but I'm sure it's coming up. That's his number. It was called A War Story. So this is all focused on his time in the army. I like the fact, normally I don't like images in the background, but in this case, she added the image in the black background. It was black and white, so it wasn't taking over, visually, but she also used the opacity slider to reduce it. So it just sits nicely in the background. And she's continued that throughout the pages. Excuse me a sec. I do like the use of the cursive font. I prefer it simply for headings because when you have a lot of it on the page, it can be hard to read. But she's worked that out and done a beautiful job. I give her 10 out of 10 for her formatting of her text pages, because this is the other thing. You might have a little bit of text or a lot of text, depending on what your aim is with your project. So most importantly, this is the other thing that I see is where the text, say on this A4 landscape or this landscape format page, people start the text right at the left where we can see although, and they run it all the way across to the right-hand side. And that's actually very hard to read and keep track. So, take a a lesson from the newspapers and use columns, and it just makes it much easier to read and engage with. And I'll just go through a few pages. Everything's so clean and aligned. There's consistency in the space between the edge of the page and the content, both the photos and the text. She's kept her column width relatively consistent. And the use of the columns also makes it easy for her to incorporate the graphics and the text on the page. Some people might like to do pages just with text and some just with photos, and we'll see some examples of those, but she's combined those both beautifully. Given that this is the first few pages of the book, she's also done a great job of setting the scene. Who's at war? How did it all begin? Then she started, introducing some historical imagery. She would have had to have scanned in the telegram and other documentation. Interesting on this page that she has introduced some capitals. It's obviously an important part of the text, but I like to keep consistency. So if she has headings like that again or subheadings like that again, I imagine she'll use caps. So I'm just going to flick through briefly so you can just see how the layout flows. You'll notice that some have captions. Maps are important. So there's just and again, the choice of graphics in the background are obviously relevant to the topic that she's talking about. If you just have a look though at the heading on the right-hand side there, Dad's last word before war, that's an example of where I personally would probably choose to have a lowercase letter at the start. I'd use sentence case rather than title case, because it is those decorative flourishes on the first letter that makes it more difficult to read. But at the same time, that cursive script is so appropriate and poignant, given that that's, there's so much handwriting that is included in family history books. Okay. So yes, I think she's done a stunning job there. And even the inclusion, I'll forgive her for putting the little cross at the top of the page, breaking her consistent margins, because it's appropriate in that context. So keep in mind, if you have some photographs that are not great, either composition-wise or in focus, or the reproduction of an old print was not that great, you can still include it in the project, but maybe you can consider it as a background graphic, just as Tanya has done here. All right. So the next one is Dad's story. So this is quite different. Obviously, it's different in orientation. It's a portrait orientation book, but the use of font and the integration of text and graphics is quite different. But straight away, we know what this book is about. It's clean. The choice of font is lovely. Her subheading is slightly smaller. She has included her name. Very important to include the name and the dates. I'm interested that these haven't got dates on the title page, but that's okay. They probably crop up. Here we go, in the first sentence. So the beauty of the portrait format book in terms of text and reading text is that it does have less width to it. So when people do run from the left to the right on a portrait page, it is still easier to read. But in some cases, columns may still be beneficial. Okay, family tree diagram. We'll get specifically to family tree diagrams a little later on, but I'm sure you're aware, or you may not be aware, but Memento software doesn't allow you to design a family tree. You need to design that in another software package and then bring that into Memento as a JPEG or a PNG or a TIFF, but we'll come back to that. But obviously we're setting the scene here. As I mentioned, handwritten documents. I think it's really important to consider that with this family history, you're going to be including stories as well as facts and documentation. A lot of that, letters, journals, diaries, contribute. But a lot of people often ask me, should I type out the text on the letters? And I think that the original script is so beautiful and says so much about the personality of the person that it deserves to be in there. But if it is hard to read, then yes, maybe you can transcribe some of them, but you could keep the graphic of the letter and possibly turn that into a background image. That's another option. Content's very important. And as you can see that this is very text heavy. I've done a lot of research and writing. And the graphics are secondary, but they work nicely into the design. Very consistent margins, all the headings have the same formatting. Interestingly, in both books, there was no use of frames. You could criticize the alignment of this, but I don't think it matters in this case at all. Kind of adds to the personality. Interesting to see too how she has turned this book into chapters. It's chronological and thematic. Few captions here and there, but not everywhere. And so on. The other thing, actually, while we're looking at this, people often say or spend a lot of time perfecting the scans or restoring old photos. I think that's brilliant if that is what you love doing. But if graphics and editing of photos and optimizing photos is not your skill set, I don't think it matters that the images are imperfect or have rips or the corner missing and things like that, because it just adds to the nostalgia and it looks authentic, it proves its age. So don't think you have to perfect everything when it comes to the graphics or the photos. All right, next one is Edna. Oh, that wasn't Edna, but that's fine. We will look at, this is a beautiful, another war story by, the book's title is Bob, His Story, designed by his son. And it too won our Book of the Month competition a long time ago. And this one is interesting because it's got a lot of graphics and illustrations incorporated into it. And layering. So obvious that layering can happen in Memento, as long as you have, say in this instance, the poppies are what we call a PNG file, which means it has a transparent background, so it can sit over the top. But I know that for this book, John, who created it, actually taught himself how to use Photoshop and got really involved in the design side of things. So his book is very illustrative. Interesting to note that this one has, unlike Dad's Story, this one has a background color. On the background color, I find a lot of books that are history books have a black background. And that's fantastic, but it does sometimes make it harder to read. So just bear that in mind. If you like a classic timeless design, then white backgrounds work, or a lot of them have the kind of parchment design or paper design in the background. As you can see, the family tree is there, but he's created that in another package. He has also used a few of our frames here. So I'm not going to be able to name them correctly, but you can see the frosted edges here. In our software, we have a library of frames, possibly up to 200 frames of all different styles and colors and designs. And we also have a library of different backgrounds, which does include this background here. Some of them are just like nice neutral tones, old paper, wallpaper styles from, eras gone by. So you can use different backgrounds. He's obviously used our the white border here, but see how his image on the right there, it still has creases in it, and I think it looks absolutely fine. He has got, I mean, this is beautifully designed. In a perfect world, I would have kept just a little bit more space between the text block there on the left and the edge of the page, just to give it a little bit more space to breathe. But he's working with a lot of content, and this is just an incredible design, I think. He's also been very clever with his layering of the different documents. It just gives it a little bit more of a decorative feel. And these look like they're simply just the scan straight out of the album, and that's probably why people choose the black backgrounds. Yeah, beautiful integration of text and graphics. And what is interesting too, and I talk about this later, is there seems to be a bit of a consistency in that there's not a black background on every page, or the album pages crop up every now and again. So there's a bit of a flow, and there's also a bit of visual variety. This book, if you're interested, and a lot of them that I'm showing you now are on our website on the family history page, and we actually have this one as a video going through the book. Once again, you can see the difference when a page has a lot of content on it and when it doesn't, and it's demanding attention in many areas, so just keep that in mind. I'm not a big fan of different coloured text, but I think it looks great in this context, and the text matches the colours of the photographs themselves. Another map. And this, cleverly he's mapped the plain graphic over the top. He apparently got very involved in his graphic design with Photoshop. Okay, so that's another beautiful war history. And the next one, so Edna must be this one. Yes, okay. So Edna is a really simple, classic book driven by the photographs. It's not particularly text heavy, but it still tells the story of this woman beautifully. Cursive script font has been used again. She's included the dates, little snippets of information here and there. She has introduced some frames that's our keyline frame there. I like how she has kept the alignment. Although the two pages don't have photographs of the same height, the alignment on the individual pages is consistent, where the top and the bottoms match. The left-hand side could probably just have a little bit more space on the left-hand side. But in the end, the level of perfection that you require or put into the design of your book only needs to be relevant for the audience who's going to be viewing it. So I'm going to talk through some of those considerations in a moment. stories along the way rather than just documentation or factual text. There's a little bit of storytelling, and she's obviously had fun, or maybe this graphic on the photo on the right was already coloured, but some people spend a lot of time colouring their images too. As you can see here, if you are going to have your black background, I think it's important that you include a keyline frame in a light color around it, preferably white, because then it just, the photo doesn't get lost in the background. And what is nice about this one is that it has a color scheme, or color scheme that's been consistent all the way through too, with that light green color. All right, so let's go back now to the, stop the share. I'm going to go back to the presentation. Share screen, here we are.
Yep.
Yes, I like it when that happens. All right, so your family history project is huge, can be huge. So I just wanted to outline the different software that you might need to use before you even get to the photo book design stage. I'm not going to go into great detail because I don't know a lot about genealogy software. I know there's a lot out there. You may want to ask some specific questions of Alex at the end. So you might need some genealogy software. Family tree software has been not capable of exporting graphics of a family tree that we can use in Memento until recently, because Memento requires JPEG, TIFF, or PNG files. You'll be pleased to know that shortly HEIC files that come off, is it just Mac or, yeah, off Apple devices will soon be compatible with the software. Family trees though, we have discovered some options very recently that I think are great, and I'll show you those very shortly. You'll need possibly scanning software to scan your photos and or your text. And it's great that all of the phones now have the scanning software on it to make it easy. You'll need photo editing software if that's what you like to do, to optimize the graphic. Some people like to remove the specs and the lines and what have you. It's up to you. Word processor. Okay, this is important. If your book is going to be very text heavy, we suggest you definitely type, or I would never use Memento for typing the text, but you'll need a word processor to do that, like Word or TextEdit and Notepad are particularly good, because what can happen with some of the proprietary products is that they include formatting at the code level, which might corrupt the text when you put it into Memento. So still use the word processor, do your spell check in the processor. Then I would suggest you copy it into, say, TextEdit if you use a Mac, or Notepad if you use PC. And that just cleans the text up, ready to put in the book, so there'll be no formatting or visual issues with the fonts and the text. Just in case you're not aware, we discovered, or I discovered with Jeff's assistance, being the techie, that there's a great piece of software called Descript, which can automatically and pretty much instantaneously transcribe text from audio and video files, which would save you a lot of time. And then, of course, we come into it at the photo book design stage. So I just wanted to talk through a few of the considerations that you have to make to start before you even open the software, Memento software. Obviously, you need to figure out exactly what's the subject. Is it an individual? Is it a family, or a branch, or a particular generation? Is it covering more than one era or generation? The sequence, big one. Obviously, chronologically is very common, but you can also combine that with thematic as well, which we saw in both A War Story and Bob's History, where it was also about locations, milestones, childhood, school or career. Now, I know the genealogists who are listening know all of this, but I imagine a lot of our customers are yet to start that process, and it can be quite overwhelming when you have a lot of content. But chronological obviously makes a lot of sense, and then you can group it into, say, school life or early life, school days, work, moving to different places and so on. But always keep in mind who your audience is. As I mentioned before, if your book is going to be, say, for a reunion, the audience is going to be broader, and their expectations on, you know, design, quality, and style will be higher. If it's just for you, obviously, you can do as you please. But then there's also some people may be putting their photo books into libraries as well. So just keep that in mind, because it will impact the size and the shape of the book and the things you decide to. And then the priority, we've talked about this. Just be clear for yourself, because it will help you make decisions along the way. Is it all about the photos? Is it all about the text? Is it all about the facts? Or is it about the stories? And then that will just help you when you go to, say, lay out a page, and also decide what the sequence is. Come back here now. Other considerations, obviously, your content is a big part of that, and I'll go on to that in a moment. But basically, you have to figure out, with this book, what shape is it going to take? What sequence is it going to have? What size is it? How do you make these decisions? Well, we just talked about needing to know what your purpose is and who the focus of it is, but also, what content do you have? How much do you have? Is it digitized already? Or will you need to spend a lot of time scanning or getting somebody else to scan it? Do you have that time? If it's for a reunion, you may not have time. What's your budget? You know, you could spend $100, you could spend $1,000, you could spend a lot more if you're doing, say, a volume order. Most people do a order of, say, 1 to 5 to 10 copies, but you can do 25 copies or more. And if you were to do 25 copies or more, we call that a volume order. And you are also able to produce a soft cover book in that scenario, because that becomes more cost effective if you're distributing to more people, and it also becomes cheaper for the postage, which people need to consider if that's their plan. The focus. Is your aim here to make this the most enjoyable process in the minimum amount of time with the least amount of stress, or you want to create the best design and the most in-depth document? These are all things you need to decide. And how much depth are you going to have to this history? Is it going to be the photos with the captions, so it's kind of a light history, or is it going to be dense in that there are particular sections and you have a lot of text for each of those sections, and it might have text for one text block for every chapter? The call is yours, but just keep that in mind, because it impacts how long the project will take as well. How many photos can go in your photo book? I did a quick look at my dad's files, and I had over 1,500 photographs and images of memorabilia and documents in there. That's a lot of content. Other people may have a lot more to start with, but how many can you include in a book? Basically, I just wanted to help you figure out what that could be. So let's say you started with 2,000, similar to me. The maximum number of pages you can put in a Memento photo book are 200, and I'll tell you the paper stocks in a moment. Let's say those 200 pages you divided into 20 chapters, 10 pages a chapter, 4 photos per page, that would equate to 800. So that's 40% of your initial one. I think it's really important to upfront before you start, set yourself some limits. Otherwise it can go on endlessly and it can become a bit overwhelming. But the limits really help. Okay. And then the other question might be when you start is, well, how many pages is my book? And that obviously depends on how much content you have to put into it and the budget. The more pages, the higher the cost. And we have page limits. Deadlines was there more for like a reunion or an anniversary gift or a birthday gift. These are considerations to make. Oh, where did my... So page limits, just so you know, our Satin 170 paper stock, you can have up to 200 pages with that. Whereas if you use, say, the Eggshell, it's 150. Oh, sorry, Eggshell and Satin are 200. Luster is 150, right? And then Lay Flat Luster, which is the top shelf, it's beautiful, but you do have a maximum of 100 pages. So just bear that in mind if you particularly love the Eggshell paper. All right. Ooh. Wrong screen. Book format. Do you have any needs or considerations to make when it comes to the format? Size. So just let me get to my page here. Yeah. Okay, size is important to know because if you do have lots of photographs or memorabilia to scan, you need to know the resolution you need to scan them at to fill a page or to fill a quarter page. So that's important. A4 landscape. Oh, well, A4 is easily our most popular size because you can create an A3 grand or A4 we call regular and small is A5. But let's say you are planning to display this at an event as a single book, maybe at a reunion, you might want to go to the grand size so more people can see it at one time. If, however, it's going to be shipped to people across Australia or internationally, you might go for a smaller size because that can be quite prohibitive. And also, the older the person is, possibly, the larger they might appreciate the book to be for legibility. Shape comes into it as well. The shape will have a bearing, or let's say the number of pages in your book will have a bearing on the shape. A4 landscape is easily our most popular book and the easiest, I would say, to read. And that is different to, say, a portrait orientation book, which has less width to it. And therefore, the thicker the book, you get you get a bigger curve in the page, so you lose content. So just be aware of that. So the gutter comes into it. If you are interested in doing a grand size to impress, I think square is a lovely format, grand square, because it's not it depends. The grand landscape open is quite large, and that may be a little bit more difficult to hold, but grand square is a beautiful size too. Papers, we've already talked about the limitations on the page numbers, but the paper, satin, if you want to make this cost effective and affordable, especially if you're ordering multiple copies, Satin 170 is the go-to. If in doubt, ever with any book that you make, Satin 170 is always an excellent option. It's our most popular and it's the most versatile. If, however, you like you want more of a nostalgic feel, Eggshell is stunning, and it has a slightly creamy, lightly textured tone. And Lay Flat Luster is great, but as I said, it's somewhere between 3.5 and 4 times the price per page of, say, the Satin. So these are just some considerations for you with the cover. Do you want to grab someone's attention with a photo on the front? If it's about a family, whose photo do you put on the front? You don't want to rub anyone up the wrong way, but that's possibly why a group photo is great for the cover of a family history book. If you want it to look more distinguished, and it's a very, a keepsake, then the cover materials, our linens with an emboss on it, will look quite unique. That comes with a high price point. You can also, let's say you want to personalize the book in some way for different member of the family, but you don't want to make that expensive. You can't print a book with us that has the first few pages customized to a particular person and then the rest is the same and get a volume discount. They're different books, but you could add a dust jacket that has a graphic that is most appealing or iconic or of the person who you're giving it to, and then that can just wrap around the book. So you're just paying for the additional dust jacket. You also have boxes you can buy, and if it's a keepsake, maybe that's appropriate for you to do that. All right. Photos, very important. If you're anything like me, you'll have so many that you need to consider for your project, but you also might have multiple sources, other family members. You might have some on an old hard drive, some on a CD-ROM, some are still in, in analog format, slides, transparencies. So just basically, you need to get all of them together in digital form in a single place, and that should be your hard disk in a single folder. With the filing, I would suggest that you have the file structure match the chapters of your book. And you could even name, I won't bring it up because as you can see, my share screen skills are not that great, but with my files and my dad's book, I have numbered the first one, like chronologically, the first folder has 01 as the prefix, and then it has the name of, say, early days. The second one has the 02, and then it has, school years, so that when I look at it in a list, it's already neatly organized into the sequence. And it makes it easy for you when you go to add them to the software, because we suggest you don't have more than 200 or so photos in a folder. Jeff and Gina may have different thoughts on that. We'll get to that at the end. But yeah, say 200 photos in a folder, and then you can have 12, that we have a maximum of 12 photo folders that you can use in a project. So if you have too many, if you have more than that in a folder, the software gets very slow. Okay, selecting your photos. Sorry, I can't help you there, but that is the hardest part. But I would suggest that you, if it's a family book, then involve somebody else to help you. Other than that, I would, if it's appropriate, focus on the best compositions, the most in focus, the most meaningful, historically speaking, but be pretty harsh. Like, you don't need multiples of the same combination of people unless it's through the years, but just take your time with that and be really tight. Scanning the photos, I just wanted to mention that you can either do those yourself or you can get a professional to help you. If you do it yourself, it's going to take you a lot of time, but if you love that kind of stuff and you've got the time, then why not? We've got the scanning specs coming up after this if you want to take a screen grab. But I would highly recommend scanning services. And yes, they may appear to be initially very expensive, but when you think about the time that it requires to do it, and you're not having to do it, then it's worth it. So you're aware, we have a service directory on our website where you can find people who provide scanning services. Okay, size of your photos. We'll come to that in a moment. I'll move to this screen now. There is no need to resize your photos for Memento. What is important, however, is the minimum pixels on your longest side. And as you can see there, I put the number of pixels that you need to scan it, or they need to be, sorry, the digital file needs to be in order to fill a regular or a grand sized book page. And I've already mentioned it, but yes, JPEG, TIFF and PNG are our file formats, and minimum quality of 80%. Okay, scanning photos. If you'd like, feel free to take a screen grab of that, but I am going to put a summary of this in a blog post, so don't be concerned if you don't. But basically you need to know if you want to increase the size by, 1 times, 2 times, 3 times, then you need to change your DPI to allow for that. And if you are scanning slides, because they're smaller, they need to be scanned at a higher DPI. I wanted to just point out that depending on the quality that you want with your final project, there is nothing wrong with photographing photos. Maybe professional photographers who really are sticklers for quality and definition, they might want to scan them, but a lot of these photos anyway are not going to be in great condition. So there's just my outline on if you do want to photograph them yourself, make sure you don't have any lighting issues, wipe them to remove the dust first, every single one, and place it on a clean, plain surface and stand directly over the image. But I did that with quite a few of the photos I used in Dad's book. Text. Okay, if the text is going to be the driving force in your book, or you have a lot, just be aware of that up front, because you'll need to allow for room. Text requires more space and different formatting. So just be considerate of that. I've already talked about the word processor. Graphic text, some people use Photoshop to create a page graphic with text. The issue with that, though, with text is that it appears to be a little fuzzy around the edges because of anti-aliasing, right, Jeff? Looks a bit jaggy, so it doesn't have the nice crispness of text that's entered into our software. And there was something else on that text front. Hold on. Text. Sorry, OCR tools. Oh yes, I already mentioned the OCR text for converting graphic text to digital text. Just makes it very fast. On your phone, you'll sometimes recognize that it's kind of a round circle with the 3 lines in it that looks like a piece of paper, and some, I'm not describing this very well. I'll put it in the blog. All right. And this is other content. Sorry, it says text. It should be other content. These are just the other elements that you might want to add to your photo book history. I've talked about most of them. Recipes I hadn't, but I did want to mention that we see so many beautiful family histories that are presented through recipe books. And they include history, content, like some text and stories along the way, and photographs of different family members, and sometimes recipes from different family members of different generations, past and present. A few other things you may not have considered: hymns, poems, eulogy, artwork by these people, and signing pages. Just thought I'd mention, sometimes it's quite nice to have some pages at the end if you want to add more content, if it's a family reunion or something like that. Okay, photo book design. So some considerations. I know we are actually, what's the time, Jeff? Okay, we're just on 8 o'clock, so I'll keep this part relatively brief so that you can ask your questions. But as you saw with the books that we looked at the start, there's some very different styles you can have. The war story one was quite dark in its tones and the backgrounds. But on the other hand, Bob's history, the soldier, His was quite light in the tones. It had the parchment in the background. To make a book look professional and consistent and cohesive, to bring it all together, it is best to have a consistency in either the colors, the fonts, and the graphic style that you use. So I always say less is more. You will never go wrong with a book that just has a white background and one text or one font. Maybe you'll use bold for headings to differentiate, or you might use italics for subheadings, but one font. And if you are going to use frames, I would suggest you don't use more than 3. Often with the books that I mentioned that come through that are very busy and almost visually overwhelming, although they're beautiful and the content is important, I'm just saying for an easy read, limit the number of fonts, the number of photos on the page, the number of frame styles you use, and the number of backgrounds. And when I say backgrounds, in terms of texture and color. In the Edna book, remember we saw that it had that limey green that was consistent throughout. You may not put it on the background of every page, but on the title page for every chapter, there's that repetition and the consistency that makes it feel professional. So I think that's a good option. So you're aware, we have embellishments in the software. We have different packages. Elegance is a beautiful black and white one with kind of stylish motifs and stripes and little bits of filigree. Then we have Old Times, 70s, where you can find like wallpaper kind of graphics that match. So they're available. Personally, if you want the book to remain timeless, the less additional content beyond the raw photos and the text, it takes it away from being classic and timeless. But if it's tasteful use and it suits, then I say, why not? Repeating what I said before, less is more, except when it comes to white space, so that you can have a lot of. Keep symmetry in mind, which blends in there with the consistent margins and alignment. Keep your top and bottom of your page. If your photographs, you've got multiple photographs on the page, keep the top and the bottom alignment the same. Wherever possible. To help you with that in the software, we do have rulers and guides, and but the templates are the best option for you. I think a lot of you have already used the software, so I will show that very shortly, but the templates have beautiful professional designs that allow for varying numbers of photographs, and it keeps everything aligned for you. And there I am repeating my comment about consistency and cohesiveness of repetition of graphics and layouts as well. And that's why I've done it, just a very quick outline of the sequence of a book. You might have 20 shots across 10 pages. So basically this is a sample chapter. In every chapter with those 10 pages, you'll have one spread that is blank on the left with the chapter title on the right with that background color. First spread on the page, the first spread in the sequence might be high impact, have an iconic image, whether it's a building or an event that fills the page, so you know what kind of subject it's about. Then you might have some pages that have multiple photos. If you are going to include more than 4, I suggest use a grid to do it, because it just keeps everything neat and manageable and visually pleasing. Then you might have some spreads at the end that have less photos but they're more important photos, and then an outtakes in the last few pages. I think I got that right. And just sequencing I think of a photo book like a bit like a paper movie, where you are just like the credits and the opening titles and the first few scenes, they set the scene for the rest of the book. And you get a feel for what the style of the visuals is going to be. You understand what the subject is going to be. So do that with your book as well. The way you choose to sequence it, like the chapters, I'm sure we could talk about that for hours, Alex. If you have any suggestions at the end, I'd be happy to hear. But the other thing is, just like a movie can be really intense visually and audibly and dramatically in a particular part of the movie, it can then become quiet and there's less happening on the screen and there's some quieter music. That creates like a flow and a rhythm in the book, and that's kind of what you want to do with your pages too. Like every page the same with, you know, panorama every single spread, it becomes a bit the same, a bit intense, but if you can create a bit of movement and drama, then that's allows for an engaging read. Text. I'm nearly finished. There's different types of text, serif and sans serif, as you can see here. Actually, they're both sans serif without the little caps and the hats on the text, on the letters. What they generally say, as in they being the book publishers and printers and designers, suggest that it is easier to read serifed fonts if it's a block of text. Sans serif you can use for headings and less text, headings and subheadings. Serif, the plain text, like this text on the page or on the screen you're looking at, is best for, as I said, the body text and also for captions. Cursive, I think it's in the same range as the sans serif. The script, use it for headings, but use lowercase. Sorry, sentence case, not title case. Fonts, there is a whole billions of collections of fonts out there. Your good old Times New Roman, Arial and Helvetica. These are fonts that are very easy to read. I think though you can, I will in the blog post that I do, I have a sample of different fonts so you can see the different look and feel. There are free fonts out there, beautiful fonts. If you do decide to go and download a beautiful font, please just ensure that when you finish your design and you export the proof PDF, you proof the PDF really thoroughly and at the size you're going to print it, or at full size, just to see if there's any issues. Sometimes when you look at a font in software or on screen, it looks great, but when you send it to print, it can become corrupt. So just be careful of that. Size and color, text data, size and color. The larger the text, the more important the text is. Smaller, least important. Color also defines importance or gives you, is often used for little breakout boxes, like we saw in Bob's, his story had a summary of some details. And if you're only going to glance at the pages and not read in depth, that's the most important info. Case we've talked about, columns we've talked about, print size. I just want you to know that if you decide to print a book in multiple sizes, let's say you create it at regular size, A4, but you want to print some smaller sizes to send to people overseas because that's more cost effective. Unfortunately, for the best results, you will need to create the book as two different files. We can print photo books in grand or regular size in small size because everything shrinks and scales nicely, but text doesn't. So it doesn't look as crisp. So just bear that in mind. And in our software, make use right from the start of the styles that you can set, or the setting styles. As you can see, got options of heading, paragraph and caption, and a custom. Can you have multiple customs? Custom text
Yeah,
set styles?
yeah,
Yes, so
if you
you can set your own, whether it's for subheadings or, you know, table names or things like that. So set those up front, and by setting them, I mean you get to choose the font size, color, alignment. Oh, and colors in there twice. And it just means that if at some point you decide that you don't like the color that you've chosen for the headings, then you change it once and it changes everything. You don't have to go and do everything individually on the page. Software demonstration. Before I go into that though, I'd now like to, because we're at 8:15, we looked like we may run a little overtime. So if you need to go when at 8:30, please do. As I mentioned earlier, I'll send an email out after this, most likely on Monday. Yes, and my plan is to I actually, on Monday, I won't have the full blog post ready to go, but be assured that when it is ready to go, I will email you. And a lot of this content that you've seen here tonight, I will have visual, context for that. And I will elaborate on some things in a little bit more depth. So in the email, I'll have the link to the recording if you want to watch it again. I'll also have the discount that we are offering exclusively to you guys who are here tonight, because family history projects are quite big projects. It's always good to have an incentive to finish it. So we'll be offering you 30% discount on any number of copies of a book up until the last day of August. So I didn't want to make that too short because you need time to do all of this, but I didn't want to make it too long either, so that there wasn't, a sense of pace, and then you could have them as beautiful Christmas presents for later in the year. So I'll include that discount in the email as well. So at this point, I would like to know if people are happy to would prefer to move into the quick Q&A, or if you would prefer me to demonstrate the software. I'm aware that a lot of people here are already Memento users. So I feel that it might be easier for me to, in the email, give you a link to the videos that show how to use the software if you're new to it. And if you have great interest in a software demonstration, you can let me know and I might just host one for you. So does anybody have any issues if we move into the Q&A?
Alex is muted because I muted everybody. So
Right.
I might want to check in with Alex.
And Alex, I'm going to unmute you at this point in case people have, oh yes, you're all unmuted, in case people have questions about, the process of family history research itself. I imagine that we could easily do a presentation or a Zoom session that's just totally based on that. So bear that in mind.
We got a few votes for the software demo.
Are you unmuted too?
I'm not, but I'm just telling you.
Sorry, Jeff's just advising me on what people have said in the chat window that they'd like to do. So we do have a few questions.
Yeah, so people are saying software demo, yes. Videos for software demo are good too.
Yes.
So that's just for whether you want to go on after this. I think an important point is that we don't have a.
I'm going to introduce Jeff, who is my partner at
now.
Work and Play. He's the I'm on the communications marketing side. He's on the techie side.
So I think it's worth mentioning that we don't have any means of importing genealogy files such as Gramps files or the like.
I've got to show you the family trees.
Yeah, so I think that's probably one of the things that's worth covering is a little bit on the family tree.
Sure.
The text, we've had quite a few questions about using the text in our software. It's funny, this software started as photo design only, and then we've added text, so it's not quite as good as we'd like it yet, but we're beavering away here in Sydney on it, and hopefully we'll just keep adding more and more and more features, and some people have put some great ideas into the chat tonight. Thank you for those.
I can see in the chat window too that there is interest in the software demo. So how about this? How about we go to Q&A now? And then if people want to stay around after 10 or 15 minutes of the Q&A, then I can demonstrate the software then. Or you can just pop a quick message into the chat window that says you'd like a demo, and I can organize one for...
Yes, do that.
I think we'll do that. I'll put the, what I'll do is I'll set that up in the email. So if you would like, I'll set up another time for a software demo that's specific to family history making. And that'll be in a few weeks or so. So, questions?
Yes, justification of text.
We
don't.
Okay. So I'll answer the justification of text, and then I'm going to jump out to just show you the family tree creation. Very easy. I was very impressed. So with the text, unfortunately, you can left align, center align, and right align, but we can't justify text at this stage, and we don't have spell check available in Memento. Our software team is very small compared to Microsoft Word and the likes. So as much as we'd love to have that functionality, it would take a lot of time for us to do it.
Justification of text is very high up the list.
Oh, but Jeff, who is, you know, the techie, he said that it is very high up the list. And just in case, another question we often get with text is that, can we do vertical alignment? No, not at this stage. Now, I am just going to jump out though and show you the solutions for the family trees. Now, Libby, here we go. So in preparing for this, yep, okay, great. I went and I was determined to try and find, or Jeff and I were both determined to try and find a solution that is easy for people who are making photo books. Most of the software for family trees that we found up until now have been very much coming from the genealogy side of things, the research, and you enter data into different fields and then it generates a family tree. But, and when it does, it doesn't allow you to export it into a format that works with our software. But I have found a few options that I think are really great. Canva, people may be aware with Canva. They started at the same time as us, actually. They have some great solutions. So I'm just going to show you examples of them right now. And I think I have a screen grab. Actually, I'll go straight to the screen grab here. Okay. Can you see that?
Yeah, sort of the top window.
Sorry. Sorry, just because I've got multiple windows open. Okay, let's try this again. So you can beg yours. Oh, yep. Okay, I'm going to. Sorry, not the perfect way to show it, but here is the family tree that I created for my family. And here's a few other examples of they have graphic content and different kinds of shapes and symbols to create the tree. Graphic, company organization charts work as well. But here is how it works. Sorry. Can't get it any larger than that. I will be doing a page on family tree design in the blog, or a separate one as well. So basically, when you get to the Canva website, if you simply do a search for family tree, you will come up with designs like these. They allow them for posters and all different kinds of things. But when you start The one thing that you just need to set before you do your search is the size that you want the graphic to be, because they have different sizes. So on the home page, top right, it says custom size, and this is where you can enter the specs. Now, believe it or not, these are the specs for an A4 or regular size landscape book. Normally, they are 29.7 centimeters wide and 21 centimeters high, but for us to print it or for you to add it to your book, you need to allow for.
They're wrong. Put the real ones up.
Apparently I've got those wrong, but you need to allow a few extra centimeters around the edge. But this is definitely worthy of a blog post, so I will be doing that. But you set the size there, and then you can go for gold. You can go in and then you enter the family tree, and it comes up with a whole host of different options and color schemes and fonts that you can choose. And you literally, there's some more designs. Some of them are graphically intensive with background images. Some of them are more corporate and classic and plain like these. So you can choose the one that suits the style of your book. Here we go. This is the family tree I was creating. What you'll see over here on the left is it's as simple as you've chosen your design, and then over here on the left, there is an icon that says uploads. That's where you upload your photos that you're going to drop in to these shapes to create the family tree. And once you drop them on, you have the ability to crop and scale that graphic to fit into the crop size here. You add in the text name, names underneath. Interestingly, all of these connecting images or graphics, you can copy and paste them to create more rows and slightly different distances. But it is really, really quite simple. And when you finish, up here in the top right, let's see if I can get you a better one for that. Something, no. Okay, I was just trying to, here we go, this one will do. So up here in the top right, they have a share button, and then that allows you to choose to download it in the size that you have selected. And it's as simple as that. And then because it's in a format that the software reads, you literally just pop it in a folder and it'll appear in the library like all the others. But there were some brilliant designs. You can change the colors and the backgrounds, remove leafy elements and those kinds of things. So that was one. And then there was also down below here, you can also get free PowerPoint or paid free PowerPoint and Word templates that are also very simple and nice designs. And you literally, go in and change the text. There wasn't the ability to change the graphics here. Actually, I think you could. But Canva, I think, is a great option. But there you go. There's some variety in the family tree design.
Last question I've got here is,
yes,
you've got a great slide on different fonts.
Oh,
do you have that in this presentation?
Yes, I do. It would look messy me trying to find it.
Right, maybe
hold on, I'll do it. I'm just going to try and find right now a graphic that I have that shows you the difference in serif and sans serif fonts and just some nice examples. I will, however, include them in the email as well. But if my filing works well, I'll go in here and do font. Oh, let's see. Ooh, fonts. No. Sorry, guys, I won't be able to find that as quickly as I would like, so I will simply.
The question was some suggested fonts to use, so maybe you can include those.
Okay, off the top of my head, most definitely. Didoni is a beautiful font. See with the, hold on, let me try and get this back on screen. How do I get that one back on screen? Sorry, just go back here to the family trees. And this one, this font, like, I think this is a really lovely font. I found this one while I was looking for fonts for family histories and used it in the presentation. It is called Bromeliad, something like that. But there are some very classy, timeless, but also not just as plain as Helvetica or Times fonts, although Times New Roman is classic. Palatino is classic. For a serif font, I love Avenir. Verdana, I'll rain check on that one. But I'll list them in the blog. That one I can send you immediately though.
That's all I've got.
Okay, does anybody else have any other questions? Let me go to the chat window.
No. All
right. Jeffrey,
Yep, no.
it appears that we don't have any more questions for now. So look at that, 8:30. So I will go to the software demonstration now. And if anybody has, I'll do a brief kind of demonstration of how you add a photo to a project, how you add multiple photos and you might align them and lay them out. Then I'll show you how you can add the text and set the different features. But if there is something specific that people want to know about, please pop it in the chat window now. But I'm just going to have a quick sip of water. Jeffrey, could I have that one? Thanks. So let's now go and find our Memento software. Handy, hold on. Oh, okay, sorry. It's opening now and I'll get the screen share happening. So stop screen share. So for those of you who haven't used the software, our aim with the Memento software is to make it easy for anyone, regardless of your creative skills, design capabilities, and familiarity with graphics and text software, that the process is still easy. And I'll show you how easy it is right now. So we are going to be making a photo book. There's no surprise there. You have different options. The software can generate a design for you after you selecting a folder of photos, and it can create a design for you in a minute if needed. With a history book, that's not going to work. So I'm going to not go with autofill, but if you're doing holiday, family books, travel, that kind of thing, autofill is excellent. I'm going to choose landscape because it is the most popular and regular. And the landscape also allows for, text and graphics to fit onto a page. So we have arrived in the software here, but immediately we're looking at a right page here. I'm going to change that to a double page spread, which is not very easy to see now until I add more pages. I'm going to add some more pages up the top here. I'm going to add 20 just so you can see. So there's our left and our right page. Now I'm going to go to find my photos. Over here on the left is where we find all the content. And now I'm navigating on my hard disk to find the photos that I need. As you can see, I mentioned before that I've labeled some of the folders according to their chronology. here. So let's start at the beginning. And I'm going to go into the ancestors folder. And what will now happen is that this content library will be populated with all the files in that folder. You can sort by date, creation date, or name. Now, on the naming front, in the case of a family history book, it can be quite handy, but not necessary to name your files in the same way that I did with the folders, where you might want to, say, have the year as the first part of the file name. Just so if you wanted to sort by date, sort by name and it'll give you the date. The thing with using date in the context of a family history is that their dates are all over the place because some of them are scanned 10 years ago and what have you. So it's not going to help you here. But just so you can see, there's all the different files that I have here, all different shapes and sizes. To add a photo to the page is as simple as drag and drop. Now, once it's on the page, we have a variety of basic tools that will allow you to manipulate it. In this case, I've obviously scanned it and I've still got some white on the bottom. So I'm going to click and drag the red arrows to create the crop area. But then I want to use the green arrows to increase the size or shrink it. Now that's not sitting in the center or to the left or the right in any major way, but if you want to automatically align, it's as simple as the photo is already selected. Come over here to your alignment tools and you can center it to the page. So that's one option. Down here in the size bar, I can choose the fit to page, so it will automatically reach the top and the bottom. But if I want, high impact, full bleed to the edges, and I can choose fill page. Now, when you go to fill page, it gives you these two options, and that's important. And I am going to choose set as background because let's say that further down the track, you add or remove pages from your book, because it may end up by default being moved from a left-hand side page to a right-hand side page, and it won't be aligned in the same way. If you have it set as background, it will always keep it properly aligned. So forget I said all of that other than choose set as background. Now, if you want, I want to center my grandfather in the middle. So if you click the space bar, you can move it up and down. I don't have any more width to work with, so it's not going to move across the page, but you can change what is in the crop area. I'm now going to uncrop this to show you more readily. So I just did a right click. So just like lots of software, you can use shortcuts or the file menu. You can right click to get to clear to background. You can go up here to the clear background image in the layout menu. And if you're like Jeff's going to get excited by this. If you come over here to the right-hand side, which unlike the left-hand side that has all the photographs and different backgrounds and frames, the right-hand side is where all the tools and the help are. Last one over here on the right is the quick help. And this has all of the shortcuts, keyboard shortcuts. So if you're that kind of person, you can find the keyboard shortcut for, Jeff, do you know it off the top of your head? For your background?
No, I don't.
Right. Anyway, so you can either use the right click, the files, or shortcuts. So I'm going to clear the background. Sorry. Jeffrey. I think I confused it then, so I'm going to copy it here. No, we're going to clear background the good old fashioned way and go up to the.
No, you're in the beta version and you've found a bug, so you're going to need to restart it.
I just debugged the software, excuse me.
The perils of using a beta version in a live demo.
So, yes, there may be bugs in the software. Generally, there are not. But if there is, you should never hesitate to contact us and we'll sort it out. That's why we have different versions coming out all the time. But it doesn't happen very often, so don't worry about that. So I'm going to go to the next spread, and I did that by clicking on the what we call the thumbnails down the bottom here, or I could just as easily have come up here and clicked on the arrows. So let me take one step back and just confirm for you the interface. On the left-hand side is where you will find the libraries with all of the content. I've got the Photos tab opened now. The next one is Backgrounds. You can get different backgrounds and some of these in here. If you double click on those, they'll open up so you can get a better view. That's a nice, simple, classic background that you might want to use in a family history book, just like that one. So there you've got your backgrounds. Frames. Let's actually make use of frames in just one moment. And that's, as you can see, there's all different sizes and tones and colors and shapes. Some of these down the bottom, I don't think you'll be needing. Embellishments. So, I only have a few listed here at the moment, but that's okay because that gives me the opportunity to show you how to access more, and some of them that might be helpful for the history book. So I'll just finish by saying there's our photos, backgrounds, frames, embellishments, which are graphics you can add to the page. They may have graphic text in there as well, frames and backgrounds. They're the whole package. Here, the last one though, is the layouts panel. And I will come to that and show you a lot more about that because that's the best place for you to be when you're laying out your pages. But let's jump back to the embellishments because I do want to show you how you can access more. So if we come over here to the other side, the right-hand side of the software, this is where you can access a lot more graphics. These are just some of them here. And we have them for birthdays and Christmas and family history books and babies and birthdays. So as you can see, we've got the backgrounds up the top, frames, and then you move down into themed graphics. Anniversary might be one you're interested in. Elegance. I'm going to do elegance because I think that it is really rather elegant. Few more family and father might be of interest, but you just need to download them. We don't put them all in the software because the software would take a very long time to load and you may not want them all. Jeffrey.
Yeah, but you're going to have to restart the software. The bug is that you just have to restart.
Because I'm doing the presentation, it's not very happy with it. But let's, so I have to restart. All right. I'm not going to restart yet because I want to show you some more. If we really need to at the end, I will. It's more important though that I come back and show you what else you can do with the photos. So we dragged on one and then we resized it to make the top and the bottom. We cropped it and now I'm going to center it. All right. Let's say you did want to add a background. No problem. Come back over here to the backgrounds on this side. I am going to use the parchment paper, literally same deal, drag and drop onto the page. Now I'm going to apply a frame that I think is relevant for a family history book. Select the photo, come to the frames library. As you can see, it populates most of the frames. So you can see what it will look like. Torn edges. You know what? I'm going to go to a single page view. I'm in double page view. You can do single or double. I'll go back to single so you can see this better. So for instance, we've got the what was that one? Torn edges. I see in family history books quite often this one. Oh, I have to select my photo, sorry. Paper corners. So you can either double click to apply the frame, which is what I did then, or you can, this is another one I see in family history books, drag it on and it applies the frame. My favorite, and the only one I really use, is the keyline. It's as simple as it sounds. It's just one line around the edge, but with keyline, it has more functionality than all the others. You'll see, so these two options are grayed out with everything else, but when I come to keyline, the thickness and the color become active, and you can go in and choose the thickness of the line that you want around the photo, and go in and choose a color. And I'm going to choose this maroony looking color, or see, yeah. There, oh, and then I have to drag it on, sorry. So it's very hard to see that. So let me try something that's more obvious. I'm going to actually try a different background, because this is what we see a lot of. I'm going to go and get the black background, bright solid backgrounds. I'm going to drag and drop the black background on. Now you can see the maroon frame. And that's why I was saying, with a lot of history photos, you really do, I think that a white keyline will make all the difference. So I'm going to choose my white, and I'm also going to make it thinner, as thin as I can go, down to 0.25, and double click. There we have it. At this point, I should also show you that we did our start. We started the project there. We've moved into layout view, this canvas view where all the action happens. And then you can go into preview, which gets rid of all the interface around it. So you can just see the page easily. So you can, sorry, text. Yep. Okay, so now let's stick with this photo. So you might want to add text. Let's say you just want to add a caption. So come down the bottom, and as you'll see, as I dragged down the bottom here, it says double click to edit text. So this is where I can enter a caption. Now, we talked about the set styles option. So these are the different styles, but this is where you set them. So set styles, as you can see, we have the title, paragraph, and caption options there. Alignment, I'm going to work with the caption one. Because it's a caption, usually that appears on the right, so that's set by default, but let's go in and choose the font. And it basically looks into your system to see what you've got there. I'm going to go and find Avenir, which I said I really liked. And if you're wondering how I got there so quickly, I didn't have to go up one by one. I just typed the letters AV and it jumped me straight to that in the list. Makes things easier. So Avenir, color, well, we're not going to see black on black, so I'm going to choose white here. Then you can come over, and if you want it to be, let's say we'll choose the light option, the thinner one, and 11, 12, possibly 10. I'm going to choose 11 for the caption. And let's see what happens. Oh, I have to write my text. Oh, there it is, sorry. Type your text into the box here and then click OK. And you can see it there in the bottom. And if you just want to get a sense again of the space and the size, I think that looks like a good size for a caption. Now, if you want to, let's say this is the, I'm going to go back to 2-page view up the top here again, because I want to see my left and right pages together. Let's say this is the chapter on my grandfather. I'm going to make the left page my title page, and the right page, just so you know, is if you ever have a hero shot, or, you know, most people would say your most important content should appear on the right-hand side of the page, because that is where the eye is naturally drawn. So I'm going to put my text on the left. To add text, come up here to the Add Text button at the top, click it, and then click on the page where you want the text box to be drawn. And let's take the opportunity while we're here to set the style for the headings now. So I'm going to go in, or the title. I'm going to actually make mine center aligned. And then I am going to choose from Limo. That's the one I found. I'm actually going to use, you could use black, you could use a color. I think I'm going to use a maroony color because it's kind of got old school, distinguished vibes to it. What is interesting to know is that publishers, coffee table books, there traditionally has been a preference for not black text, but dark gray text, because apparently it is easier to read. Just keep that in mind. So I'm literally just going to go in and choose the color that I want. And then the size, and I think I can ramp that up to 24 and we'll see how it goes. So let's see how we go here. Now, Gordon Jeffrey. Oh, I need to, sorry, because I just set the style. As I type this, I need to select it though and say that I want it to be the heading font. There we go. And there we have it. Oh, that's a little bit diminutive. So I'm just going to jump straight back in and set the style and make it at least twice the size and go up to, let's say 48, just so we can get a sense of it. And okay, and there we go. Now, the only reason it's wrapping to a second line is because I haven't got my text box wide enough, no problem. And if I want to center that, just in the same way we did the photo, come over here to the alignment section, and I'm going to horizontally center it, but I'm not going to vertically center it. I might just bring it down a little, and there, I'm happy with that. So adding text as a title, as a caption. Let's just say we want to put a little bit of information in there about him as a block of text. Once again, get your add text, click your add text button, click where you want it on the page. And now I'm going to say that grandfather was born in 1880. I have no idea. But this will give us the opportunity to see what body text looks like. So we'll go and set the style for that. Paragraph font. I said, let's do another one that's nice. American typewriter is actually nice too for history books. And I'm actually going to choose the light option. I'm going to keep the text as black, and I'm going to make the size 11, or let's make it 12. 11, 12 is common for body text. There we go. And it's left aligned. And to make that more visible, there we go. Grandfather was born in 1880. Just to give you a sense of how that might work in terms of large blocks of text. I would, if I had a lot of it, I'm going to make that bigger. Just make it 8. Sorry. So I might have one column here, and then if I want to keep the same width for the second column, then I can copy it here, and then I'll just replace the text. But what you'll see when I do that is that as I drag around, it tells me when I'm in alignment, which is very handy. Now, let me show you the most valuable, the most valuable part of the software is, let's say, I'm going to create a spread here that's got some really old photos, all black and whites, and all portraits, she says. There we go. So now, obviously, they're just any old place on the page. But if we come up here, we can manually align those literally by selecting them and going over here to the align to page and align. Oh, that was to page. Sorry. I want to align, relative align to each other. And that means I'm going to come over here and do that again. I'm actually going to right click instead relative align all to the top edge. And then I'm going to use I always get my horizontal and vertical incorrect. Anyway, so they're all relatively aligned, but that's not a brilliant, they're not spaced correctly. We can do that by copying, selecting them all, and then come up here to spacing, equal, horizontal. There we go. But even better than that is just jump straight into layouts view. You'll see here that it currently says we have pages where these are not left and right pages. They're all just different pages, a single page. And as you'll see, nothing yeah. So that's a single page template. This one, the new part, is spreads. And this is where you can get a variety and they can actually cross over the gutter of the page, but I haven't shown that. Oh, Jeff's just explained why. Because I failed to click the include templates with spanned photos.
There was a few. You got an even number of photos, so they'll be quite.
Oh, right, because there we go. So for example, there's one. So all you need to do is click on the layout that you want and it will take on that design. Obviously, that's not going to work for everyone. Like, I don't have in the frame there what I want to see. No problem. No problem. Just hold the space bar and then drag into frame what it is that you want to see. So while I'm here, I'm just going to show you that I would do the cropping of my images before I come into the software, generally speaking. Jeff, do you have any advice on that front?
It's a matter of taste.
You can crop in the software or beforehand. One thing I will point out on that front is, though, that if you do edit the colors of your file before you drop it into our software, don't choose the enhance tool that I'll show you in just a moment. So I've now cropped those into exactly where I want them to be. So if I come back to the list here, they'll be in better shape. Here we go. Beg yours? Oh, not the case, but basically there are a variety of designs there. They will keep everything beautifully aligned for you. And this is another reason why it's best to crop before you bring it into the software so it works beautifully in the templates. All right, so I've shown you the templates. Jeffrey, can you think of anything else? Is there anything else anyone's
Just the export, I think.
The export, right. So let's say you've laid out your page, you've had a quick flip through to see what it looks like sequentially. I should mention, when you're doing the cover, you have to, the only way you can access that is down the bottom left hand here. And I'm going to choose a group shot for the front cover of the book because she says as she tries to find one, let's pretend that, because it's got everybody in it. I'll fill the page. And there are a few additional options that you have here. You can change the color of the background. There's another option. So I'm going to go in and choose, I think I'll choose black in this instance. And then over here, this is the spine of the book. So you can actually, if you want a printed cover, you can enter spine text, but you can't do that if it's a material cover. So type that in there, but I'm going to change the text to white or we won't see it. So I'm going to use the Brolimo again for consistency. Choose the white and keep the, there we go. And you can see it down the side there a bit better. All right. Time to show you the export. You can, this is a dust jacket flap. If you choose a dust jacket, you can put content there too. Now, the most important part of the process, exporting your file. Let's just call this family history. very creative title for me. I am not going to save it in that folder. I'm going to save it at the top level, and I'm saving it with all the photos in the project to keep them all together. So I'll save it there. Now we've come to export view. Basically, it at this stage has a look through all your files and tells you if there's any issues. And just to create an issue, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do this so we can see an issue. Oh, what should I do about that one?
Scale up, you want the size one?
Yeah.
Scale it up even more.
Oh, scale it up even more. So basically, when I said to you earlier on, you don't have to worry about resizing your files. That's because the software will tell you if there is an issue, if there's not enough resolution or there's not enough pixels. So we obviously enter the title there, and then it tells us any issues that it finds with the files. I'm not concerned about the blank pages, we'll move on, but it does give me the quality warning. So if you double click there, oh, sorry, if you click on here, it'll take you to the page where there is a quality warning. There it is. And all you need to do is to shrink or resize or decrease the size of the image so that it takes the icon away, which means that the file is now at a size that it will print crisply. Wow, I really did overdo it, didn't I? So where this might occur is if you do your scanning of your images or a slide, and then you want to create a grand landscape book and you want to fill the page and you didn't use the right DPI, it doesn't have enough resolution. The other issue that we saw was what we call a warning message, an edge warning, and that's because the software isn't sure if you want it printed on the left or the right-hand side of the page. So basically you move it back out until the edge warning disappears. But they're all really important things to have a look at. I'm happy for now. So what happens here is the software creates 3 different files. It creates the MBF, the master book file, which is the one that you will ultimately upload to our service, and that's what we will print from. Then it also creates a proof PDF, which is the most important file for you. I will actually just jump to show you the proof PDF. Let's do this. Let's go proof. So basically the proof PDF is exactly the same as your, it's exactly the same as your master book file, but it has a watermark on it. Wow, look at these old ones. So fingers crossed this looks okay. Okay, so this is now open. Oh, it's not the proof. Look, I'm not going to try and talk you through that now. I'm just going to say that the proof PDF. Oh, now it's finished. I'll open the one that we've created. So we've opened it in Acrobat. To see the pages as we scroll down, there we go. We have your pages in the book. We haven't filled them all, but basically you'll see now the watermark in the background. And what this is important for is you can check if there is any font corruption, if there's any alignment issues, if, for instance, you hadn't, if the photo didn't meet every edge of the page here, you'd see like a little white border around it. And that just helps you understand that if you don't want the white border, you need to go back in and reposition it. And this is especially important for family history books. And I think it's worth mentioning at this point, if you are working with your book, if you are working with other family members while producing this book, you might want to send them the file to have a look at. rather than do the proof. You can send them a proof PDF, but it's better to do a lower resolution version because it's quite a large file. So I'm not file. Hold on. So I'm going to click out of this now, come over to the file menu here, and you can export a quick proof PDF. So that will create you a file that is much smaller and easier to send to someone, and they can view it properly. And Jeffrey, is there anything I've forgotten there? After that, you upload to the website, the book appears in your project list, and that is where you can then go in and order the book and choose the cover material, the paper stock, the size, because if you have made it as a regular size book, you can still choose a small size print if you would like, but you can't choose a grand size print because we can shrink, but we can't scale up. And I believe that that is the end, unless there is any burning question that's a quick one that somebody has. Jeffrey, you'll have to tell me because I can't see it.
No, I think that's it. I've been answering a few more as we go along, so hopefully everybody saw them in the chat window.
Great. And as promised, I will send you the email. It will have some of the information that I promised this evening, including the fonts, the font view. I will soon-ish create a blog post that kind of summarizes all of this and gives you some better visuals. The recording will be available and the discount details will be available as well. So I hope that everything that you've learned tonight inspires you to either make more progress on your family history project and allows you to produce it before the end of the year. And when you do, I think it is one of the most beautiful gifts that you could give a family member. So I look forward to, if this does happen, to hearing from you about when you hand the book over for the first time, because that's the golden moment. So pay attention, and it's beautiful to see the response you get from family. Thank you, Alex, for joining as well.
Oh, Libby, my pleasure. I might just mention to people, and thank you so much. It was a great presentation. And the discount offer is really generous and very encouraging and motivating. I hope that I might also be able to encourage and motivate people who are interested in writing their family history, because the Queensland Family History Society presents an award for the best history of a Queensland family published in book form within the last 5 years every year at their AGM. And the closing date for entries is the 30th of November each year. And there is a prize, cash prize, and membership to the society.
And
so
to the
if you find out more about that, I'll put the website in the chat for people to follow up.
And sorry, Alex, I talked over the top of you for a moment here. Just to
Oh,
say that we will also contribute a voucher prize.
Fantastic.
And possibly we may, given that it's Queensland specific, might be a nice time for us in our 20th year of business to introduce our own family history photo book competition. And I'm aware that as a big project, it's nice to have what they say, to be kept accountable to someone. So we may, I would like to at some point have another session about family history, get some input from you, Alex, and also to have people be able to ask questions about where they're at in their project, and we can assist with that as well.
Right.
So on that note, thank you all for being with us this evening. Apologies about the sharing screen issues there that I hadn't perfected yet, but I hope the other content made up for that. And good luck with your projects.
Thank you, Libby.
Good night. Oh no, I want to end it. End.